how much is on-premise storage growing? And it says net new, refreshing, repatriation of data growth, and AI, ML on-premise, HPC maintenance frame use. It's a lot.
That's a whole research paper right there. Let's break that down a little bit. So the first part is how much is growing. John, I think you said unstructured data is 50% per year, is what you said earlier. It's at least that. Okay, what was the next part of that, Jen?
So then they break it down into net new, refreshing, repatriation of data growth, and AI/ML, HPC.
Oh boy, that's complicated. The repatriation has to do with two things that we've seen. First was typically a management mandate to move data to the cloud, and it was basically wasn't designed to work in the cloud, and so the cost was very high. And so we've seen significant repatriation for those that prematurely moved applications and repositories to the public cloud and started looking at the bills and saying, we can't afford this anymore. And one of the things we did for a number of customers early on, and this is interesting because we did it primarily for like directors of IT, where they were ordered to move things to the cloud. We would do an economic model and show what it meant for them to move that to the cloud and their growth rate and what were the costs that they were incurring versus what they spent now. And in most of them, within 3 to 4 years, the charge for storing data in cloud was more than their current IT budget was. And so some of that repatriation was there. Others were looking at where the data was most likely to be utilized, and some had some security concerns as well. Now, the AI ML data for that is very interesting questions. The bulk of the data actually may be pre-processed or looked at first in the public cloud, but for long-term retention, it typically comes back on-prem because of economics. But most of the development work for the analytics software, if you will, is done in public cloud. So we see a lot of it starting out there, but then migrating back just because of cost reasons. It's quite simply a lot cheaper to have it on premises. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Cost is a very compelling factor. Latency, and frankly, another one we're hearing a lot of right now, Randy, is data sovereignty. People are very concerned about where the data physically resides, particularly in EMEA, where data privacy laws are real and their challenges with the Cloud Act are real. So data sovereignty is a real driver for keeping data on-prem, as in addition to cost and latency concerns. Compliance is also a concern. In some regulated industries, such as gaming, healthcare, finance, where data is physically stored matters in every country. The laws here in the United States can be very restrictive around those industries as well as in EMEA. So data locality, compliance, data sovereignty are all driving this trend. And I think what's really the back and forth that we're seeing is as the on-prem environment becomes more cloud-like in its management model and its how you can scale without impacting headcount. As it becomes more cloud-like, that back and forth becomes more fluid. So what we're starting to see is a lot of folks interested in how do I make these two environments work together so I can put data wherever it needs to be, on-prem or in the cloud, and I can make that decision on a real-time basis as opposed to having to decide once and for all. If these two environments looked and acted the same, I could make every decision on a case-by-case basis and just treat the cloud like another part of my operating environment. And that's where we're seeing our customers headed long-term.